Okay, I will actually start instead of talking. Actually, I asked Simon there to be my guinea pig tonight. Yeah. He's wearing a headset, and so we'll get into it later. This is a brainwave headset he's wearing.
I'm not working for their company.
No, right? No, he doesn't know what I'm getting him into today.
And microphone?
Hmm?
Okay. Microphone.
Sure. So, yeah, he's connected to my tablet here. It's running an app, and I'm going to actually do a little experiment. So this afternoon, actually, I decided, instead of just doing some old demo, I'm trying something brand new, which I haven't used before. So this actually is a new app that we have. It's for education purpose. So I'm going to start it. And it's actually quite simple. It's, so for example, if I am a student and I just have this running on the side, it's going to change color pretty soon. So right now it's still gathering the information. And yeah, okay, so now it starts changing color, right? So it's basically like a traffic light, okay? Green is good, yellow is okay, red, orange is not so good, right? Okay, so very simple, right? So very simple. Okay, so if I'm a student, if I'm wearing that and I'm studying, or the teacher's talking to me, you can see the situation. He's not doing well. Anyway, so I'm going to leave this here, and the experiment is actually for today's topic. So this afternoon I make up a story. Okay, so I'm going to try the story on you, see if you like the story. All right. Mary is 23 years old. She has a communication degree from San Jose State and worked as a paralegal in a law firm with big-name clients like Apple and Google. The economy is booming in the valley, and things look really bright for her. Robot estimated your wait time will be 34 minutes and 23 seconds. Mary sighed, then slowly started walking towards the garage. Okay, so let's see. So it was 5 minutes and 17 seconds speech I had, right? Just now, I hope you see the the color changing. And there's a few moments actually, for example, when I did a pause, when I did a few things, I noticed his color actually went high. So basically, this is a breakdown of over this 5 minutes, his percentage in the different color zone. Remember, the light blue is actually the best. Green is good. Yellow, is starting to get worse. And you can see over the time. So in the beginning, he wasn't really engaged. It was mostly red.
Because he's in front of everyone, right?
Become better, and so there was a whole range where he was doing well, and then there's a lot of up and down. But see, the whole point is, so I just tried something which I've never done before. I wrote a story this afternoon. I don't know how good it is. And you guys can tell me later how well I did. But at least I know now how Simon think I did over this 5 minutes and 17 seconds. So this is what a sensor like what we have can do. All right. Thank you, Simon. All right, so back to the story here, all right? So what did I tell you in the story? Actually, it was, the reason why I come up with that story really is something which I've been thinking about pretty seriously in the past, I would say almost a year now, right? And the reason why, by the way, why I did, this education software was because I felt like, going forward, we are all going to be competing with AI, with robots. And I want to equip our next generation using technology like this to make them, competitive with the coming age of AI and robotics. So, industrial robot, we have seen in the past about 20 years, has replaced all the factory worker for all those repetitive motion work in the factory, right? Repetitive motion is something which can be easily replaced by a robot because they don't make mistake, unlike human worker, and they don't get tired, they don't complain, right? Now, the question is, knowing that's happened already, would this repeat itself in the coming days when the AI becomes so intelligent that any repetitive mental task, like a paralegal was what I use in the story, can that be replaced by AI, by computer? And past, when we have the Industrial Revolution, when we have past technology revolution, there's always technology replacing human, but new job was also created. So the human as a race can continue to evolve. But can we take solace on this happen again when AI is able to replace how we are able to mentally perform tasks, right? So this is a question that actually, is getting a lot of debates. And even, like in the story which I had, even there's new job that's created, there's going to be current generation of workers that's going to get displaced, that cannot learn the new skill, that cannot get into the new economy. So there's going to be a societal cost as far as people that get left behind. All right. So actually now is at the point where maybe you can ask a question.
Oh, for the experiment
right.
you just did with Simon, you measure attention span or interest? What are you measuring? The emotion?
So the two things that's behind there's two things. One is definitely attention. It's how much attention he's paying. The other one that's being measured was the impression level. So how deep an impression that was leaving in Simon's mind. Right. So from an education standpoint, in order for you to learn something and actually remember it, require, number one, need to pay attention to. For example, if I'm a teacher, he's the student, he need to actually pay attention to what I'm saying. The second thing is actually basically how good my teaching is, so at least how much you perceive, what I say to you is important, is impressive to you. So that's an impression level. So that's the two things that was measured.
Is that two electrode or one electrode?
It's single electrode to the forehead.
One electrode and two. Is it one?
There's a reference. So basically,
where is that? Is the right side or left side?
It's the electrode one is on the left. So it's FP.
More on the left.
Right. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
On the left side. Right.
Why you choose the more left side?
Actually, either left or right will work for us. So
doesn't matter. You are righty, lefty.
No. Yeah. In the way that we measure those senses, attention, impression, doesn't matter. It's on the frontal lobe, and it's a reference to the ear.
Through the ear.
Reference to the ear. So, brainwave. I'm going off script now, and I'll probably get fired by the AI in my head. But so, brainwave is a voltage measurement. So imagine you're measuring a battery. You need two sides, right? So the sensor here, actually, there's forehead sensor, and then there's an ear clip. The ear clip is the second point. So that's basically you have brainwave on top. You don't have brainwave here. So that's a positive, negative. So that's how it's measured. All right. So back to the script here. So another thing I want to point out, the story, yeah, I told you earlier, nothing in that story is, or everything in the story is actually technology that's available today already, right? They're saying that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? I think you probably heard of it before. And that's very much the case, you know, bone conducting things that can, you know, talk in your ear, you know, AI, you know, robotic, autonomous car, everything is said in the story is actually already happening today. It's just how pervasive it is. That's the question, right? I also kind of purposely make the story kind of dark, but I hope you also notice there's quite a few positive points I made in the story. So number one, during her sales process, actually the AI is actually guiding her. It's actually an augmented experience where, you know, the AI is trying to help her to prep her for the background and also kind of guiding her through the process. And the kind of the car at the end, right? The car actually took advantage of the idle time, right? And you know, I hate to sit at the dealership waiting for my car to get service. So the car actually decided to kind of do it on its own without Mary having to do anything. And actually was able to make a purchase by itself and also actually find a good deal to save her money, right? So all those are actually positive things, and that's happening as we speak. So AI and robots, you know, today and actually in the foreseeable future, they are assistive to us. They are collaborative to us. They are trying to help us, right? And we basically, so far, we are able to figure out how to leverage technology, how to kind of evolve human as a species with new technology. And I think as the mental, although you know, the way the machine and the AI is, we sort of is already at a point, you know, for physical labor is kind of losing cause for human today. But we are still way ahead on the mental side. There will come a day actually when the machine and the AI is going to be, you know, more intelligent than we are. You know, looking at how fast AlphaGo, you know, first kind of beating 4 out of 5, now is like invincible in AlphaGo now, right? This type of advancement is actually coming very fast. But I think the positive side is actually we want to look at this as a human species, as how we can actually co-evolve with this coming revolution and how we can benefit from it. All right. No more scripts. All right. Okay, so it's not just me saying it. Actually, there's a further kind of debate between Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, right? Sorry, I need some water. And although on the surface they seem to not agree with each other, but if you dig deeper, actually, the funny thing is both of them kind of arrive at one thing. They both arrive at, you know, whether the future is the AI is going to destroy human or, you know, help human. They all wanted to somehow advance the brain tech and using brain tech as a solution, as the next step that human needs to have in order to work with the coming AI. And beyond just talk, both of them put a lot of money behind it. Okay, and there's millions and millions of dollars going into this. And if you look at Gartner's hype cycle, and this is just from July this year, and I'm surprised to, you know, I highlighted all the things that's either, you know, AI, robotic related, or brain related. And you can see how many things I highlighted on there, right? And it's all either has already over the peak of the hype, or it's climbing the peak right now. And I kind of, most of those things actually can be positive or negative to I guess, this debate about whether AI is going to kind of decimate the human race or not. But I kind of just use the red and green here. So the green thing is if it's more pro-human, and the red thing is more pro-machine. All right. And you can see there's actually a little bit more green on the left side. I think that's kind of propelled by the Silicon Valley thinking, including Mark and Elon, in terms of using brain-related technology to help human as a race. So brain. So why is the brain so important? And so I have a little kind of quiz for everybody here, and see how much you know about your brain. All right. Starting from question number 1. All right. So there's this myth or this kind of talking. I think everybody saying we are not fully using our brain capacity. And this is also part of a big theme in this movie called Lucy, right? And she started by saying, all humans only using 10% of your brain. So, how many of you think human is using 100% of the brain all the time? Raise your hand. 90? 80? 70, okay, 60, 50, okay, 40, 30%, 30% some more, 20, 10%. Oh, okay, so we have a kind of a spread, but nobody say 100%. We actually use our brain 100% of the time. Maybe when you think about 10% or less than 100% is your consciousness, what you can focus on. So for example, you are actually listening, you are seeing, you are smelling, all the senses, all your 5 senses are working all the time. But you are probably only paying attention to hearing right now because you are listening to me, or you are paying to your visual side, right? So there are certain things which you are focusing on, but actually everything is working all the time. So 100% is the right answer. Second question, this is from Inside Out. And in the movie, in the brain, you can your different emotions actually go in and seeing all your memory. So your memory in the movie is depicted as a marble, and you can pick it up just like what you see at the bottom. Integral memory, you can replay it, and when she drop it, or when things fail, actually the whole memory get erased and went away. So the question is, if you cut into your brain, just like all the computer memory, you can find, like a right or wrong, organized this way, you can find things similar to a file where one of your memories collected like this. So true or false. So anybody who say true, say false, let's say false, please raise your hand. Okay, so false is correct. We don't organize our memory like RAM or ROM. It doesn't store that way. You can never go in and find a single event, like holding up a marble and replay or erase it. It actually doesn't happen that way. When you do a memory recall, you are actually reconstructing your memory from different pieces of your neuronal information. So yeah, that's the second question here. Okay, third one. This is what you see at the bottom, the dots, those are the neural network, kind of like a representation of it. So, you know, in neural network, in AI, you use a machine to represent neuron, your brain, right? And then it's organized in layers. So the question is, this neural network, you know, what we all talk about, artificial intelligence, the architecture of a neural network, is that an accurate depiction of how your brain works? Yes or no? Again, yes, raise your hand this time. The answer this time is yes, it is. But, you know, it's a qualified, it's a qualified yes. It's, so the neural network actually started out by trying to replicate how our biological brain works. Our brain is actually really complicated, but you know, the visual cortex, the way that we see images using the back of our head, that portion of the brain, the organization actually is very similar to how the neural networks architecture is today. All right, so let me continue. The point I'm trying to make here, though, is that we really know very little about brain. Especially, I think, you know, I actually get into it myself 10 years ago, but I think in general public, you know, most people, although everybody owns a brain, but you know, we still know very little. Even, you know, the top neuroscientists, they admit they know very little. So this is one of the guys. He's a Harvard professor. You know what he said? If everything you need to know about the brain is a mile, how far as a human race have we walked in this mile? And he always poses this question as the first thing he does in his Harvard class. And the answer he has for this is 2 inches. Okay, so that's how much we know about our brain, even for a guy like him. Okay, so with that, I'm going to actually play a little. I think it's probably, you know, a refresher for your biology lesson, but I think it's, you know, good to revisit it. Okay, so by the way, now I think I understand your question. And you know, actually the movies kind of show you how our brain is organized. The early day of a neural network of artificial intelligence was trying to kind of mimic how the biology was doing, but very quickly, you know, once, especially today, you know, the goal is no longer trying to mimic biology. It's actually more about just being able to solve problems, you know, faster, you know, better, and things like CNNs, things like you know, a lot of those back propagation, all those things actually doesn't happen in brain, but you know, it's good enough, you know, that it's helping AI to become smarter. So that's the goal today. All right, so with the little kind of foundation that we have, on brain, I want to kind of emphasize a couple things. So number one, if you want to talk to your brain, you know, if you want computer to talk to your brain, and the basis of it was, like in the movie, it's basically your neuron will fire, right? So how do you actually either talk to your brain or listen to your brain actually is the key in terms of how do you actually harness the power of a brain, or you want to augment a brain. Okay. And there are actually already a lot of different methods today for us to do that. So I'm going to kind of quickly introduce you to them. So they are non-invasive methods, and they are also invasive methods. To just listen to your brain. Remember, you know, we are talking about neuron fire. Like I talked about earlier, actually we are, you know, making, it's actually called action potential. Action potential is a voltage that our brain is generating. So that's one way to do it, is actually reading the action potential and the including our headset. So the kind of the oldest way for us to read the brain is using something that we call EEG. It's basically, like I said, it's a very sensitive voltmeter. Our particular version only measure one from your forehead, but the more traditional ones like this, there's a multiple channel, you put it all over your head. And the color plot on the right basically is how your brain at different site is activated during different tasks. So besides measuring voltage, right? There's also if there's a voltage, there's current, right? So the other method is actually measuring the current, but to measure it kind of non-invasively, the way they measure it is using a magnetic field. That's a generator. As the current flow this way. That's your magnetic field. So that's what's measuring here. It's called MEG, and it's a typically huge machine like this, very expensive to do it. And the readout looks something like this on the lower right-hand side. It has advantage compared to EEG is that your voltages actually get kind of distorted by your skull. Your magnetic wave doesn't. So as far as spatial resolution, this is much better than EEG. But because of the way the wave work, it only works with tangential information. So the amount of information is much less compared to EEG. And besides measuring current, measuring voltages, the third way to do this is, as I mentioned earlier, it's very expensive to run your brain. And it actually is kind of show up as you need to supply lots of blood to your brain in order for all those firing to happen. And every time when you have some firing happen, actually there will be additional blood that get drawn to those sites. So there's an indirect method of measuring your brain activity. It's called FMRI. It's actually measuring how much blood you have in the various site. It's also a big machine like this. The advantage of this is that you can do very much like a 3D graph of what's going on inside your brain. And I did not include one of, actually there's an advancement in this area. There's something called FNIR, which is a more like a smaller portion of this. Instead of this huge machine that costs millions of dollars, now there's like things that's more in the tens of $1,000s range, and that's more like a desktop size thing, which is much easier to maneuver. But it also it's less precise, it collects more superficial information than the full 3D image. Okay, so that's listening. So listening to your brain's activity. How about talking to your brain? And there are right now the popular one. There's two. There's a few more, and that we'll talk about later. But the first one is called transcranial direct current stimulation. And the picture here is actually not exaggeration. This is actually from a product. So you are basically connecting voltage across your head and trying to stimulate it. Okay, it kind of sounds barbaric, but that's actually how we perform some of those, trying to treat people with attention deficit, for example, trying to help you become more focused. The other one is so instead of this is the product picture, so it looks something like this. The other one is actually, instead of using DC, it's actually using magnetic wave. So it's also a product. It's you can see it on the left side, and on the right side actually is one of the patient that's having epilepsy. It's actually one way. Basically, you can think about it as if your brain is a computer. When you're having a seizure, having an epilepsy, it's almost like your brain has a core dump. It's having problems. So this is like a master reset. You are just zap it hard and trying to shut it down and then have it come back again. Okay. So basically the way that we are talking to our brain today is very crude. It's all like this turning off the switch or zap it. It's remind me of when I was younger, when like a toaster oven broke at home. My father would first take a stick and beat it, and if it doesn't work, turn off the power, turn it back on, see if it will work again, right? So that's what we have today as far as talking to our brain. Okay, and then there's the more invasive method, and the one that actually you see on TV a lot, on YouTube, where you see monkey actually being able to remote control a robot or a paraplegic woman drinking Coke for the first time. They are actually having this sort of procedure. It's actually electrode that's implanted on top of your cortexes, and it's usually an array of sensors like this, and it's picking up signal that way. Okay, and there are also applications where not only you are just listening, you are actually also injecting a signal into your cell that way. So it's a lot more pinpoint. And I mentioned earlier, EEG suffer from your skull actually distorting the signal. So by removing your skull, actually now you don't have those distortion, and you can be very pinpoint in terms of touching special region or specific region of your brain. But again, one pinhead size is 30,000 neurons, right? So even at the scale, you are not talking to individual neuron yet. You are talking to certain region of your brain. What I mentioned so far, everything here is all used medically for various diagnoses and research. All right, and this is so what you can do with this sort of implant electrode and the type of signal that you can get from it. And lastly, actually, this is actually something which we already see commercially, right? This is a cochlear implant for people that's hearing impaired. It's basically directly, taking like a microphone signal and bypassing your ear and directly stimulating your hearing nerve. So that's a way of talking to your brain through your hearing nerve. Okay, so now armed with both what I told you was the fundamental of how our brain work, and also the tech today at the the medical level. How do we work with our brain? Let's talk about the tall tale and reality. So, where did Mark put his money where his mouth is? In the user group conference earlier this year, this is in April, and they announced the type of brain initiative they are taking on Facebook. You can Google and listen to the whole speech there, and the gist of this is basically at Facebook they feel like how fast you can interact with whether it's your computer or your cell phone is too slow. You can think much faster, and definitely typing with 10 fingers is slower than how you can think. But imagine you're on a cell phone, you're wiping, and you're probably typing with just 2 thumbs, right? That's even slower. So the idea here is actually let's bypass all this and go straight to your brain. Let's figure out what you are thinking. So replacing typing using your brain. Okay, so that's what they are trying to do. Okay, and this part to me is the tall tale part. Okay, what's let's look at the kind of leading edge research that I can find. So let me again play a video. This one doesn't require audio. So on the left side, so this is an experiment done in Berkeley. What they do is actually use a FMRI, so the big machine that I talked about earlier, and they study people who's watching 5,000 different YouTube clips and trying to reconstruct the movie. So then let me actually pause some of those ones, sorry. So for example, like right here, okay. So this is what the movie is presented to the user. This is after the reconstruction. So another thing actually I felt that's kind of unfair here is basically, even they said this kind of randomly selected movies, they still, it's a limited set of movie, that's number one. Number two is all the subject, they were kind of trained with this movie first. So they knew watching this movie, this sort of brain pattern is going to result first. So it is not a random video that the person never seen before. It's all movie that person has already seen, and they know beforehand what the brain pattern looks like. After that, they are using this to actually reconstruct when you are watching one of those movies. So this is how much you can do today to use a complicated machine like a FMRI, that's a big machine, and reconstruct from how people is seeing a movie when you know what movie they are watching. This one actually I think is more believable. This is also done in UC Berkeley. It's a project called Past Thought. This is actually using NeuroSky Gear, so it's a lot lower tech. But the idea here is actually having a user kind of, instead of set a password for a device, they actually, for example, like using the brainwave pattern while they are singing a song, and using that to lock your device. And then when you can sing the song again in your head, this is not even singing out, and then you can actually unlock the device. Okay, so those are the kind of reality of what we can do today. But to get to the point where you can actually kind of just randomly have any thought in your mind, and somehow that get into your mobile devices and replaces your typing, that's still years away from being a reality. Okay. All right. So we talk about what Mark wants to do. Let's talk about what Elon wants to do. So Elon, although he thinks AI is going to kill us, but his solution for this is, to put it simply, is he think we need to kind of become cyborg ourselves. We need to actually embrace AI and make AI part of us. So we are, basically we co-evolve with AI. This is kind of a simple way to do it, to describe it. He actually has a very kind of elaborate kind of philosophy behind this, but that's one sentence to say it. And so is he right? Right? It's and actually it's not me questioning it. Everybody was questioning. Is it possible? So what does he want to do? And in one of his talk, he talked about this thing called Neuro Lace. And if you Google it, you will find it's actually part of a fiction from this series called The Culture. And in there, Neuro Lace basically is something which is talking about, it's an alien technology that can basically interface to each neuron in your head and inject different kind of, whether it's a hormone, psychedelic, things like that. So that's kind of where Elon was talking about this, but what he really wanted to do is basically, as we hear in the video earlier, that individual neuron is kind of dumb. It's just on and off. But what's interesting is the network, is that when all the neurons are interacting or interconnected, and how they are turning on and off, that's where it's interesting. So all the input technology that I talk about today, as I mentioned earlier, is still not very high resolution input. So what he wants to do is actually get down to the individual level and being able to collect, record information from every neuron. So what's possible? So there's a few of the more notable founder of Neuralink is the company that Elon started. And one of the more notable person, he has done this research, actually it's published in 2016, just last year, also from Berkeley. And it's called Neurodust. So it's a flexible sensor, it's injectable, ingestible, it's implant though, so this is invasive, and it's actually using you use ultrasound to activate it, so it doesn't have a battery or anything, right? And he has actually tried it on mice already. A separate group that also published their result is something called Neuro Mesh. And remember, when I talked about the implant earlier, it's a grid size sensor, so it's the same sort of idea, except in this case, so the array is so small that it's made of a polymer mesh, and at each intersection there is actually one sensor, and it's so small you can roll it up into a syringe, and you directly inject it. They haven't done it to human, but you can see the poor mice at the bottom, which had the injection there. Once you inject the lace into the brain, it will unfurl by itself and lay itself on top of the brain, and you will actually, because it's supposed to be biocompatible with mice, so you will actually, over time, it will actually grow onto the brain itself, and you can continue to monitor the mice that way. Okay, so those are things that's already done today. But, we said we have 100 billion neurons in our brain, right? And I hope a lot of you here know what Moore's law is here, right? Okay, so if you take the progress, so you can see the chart here is from 1960 to this year, 2010. And you take the progress of how many neurons we can record simultaneously over the years and the progression. And by this law, it's actually 7.5 years, it will double right now. That's how much progress we're making in terms of brain-machine interface. So that means by 2225, we'll be able to talk to 1 million neurons at the same time. And remember, the target is 100 billion neurons, right? Okay, so definitely I think the law needs to be much better than 7.5 years to double for us to really see anything meaningful in our lifetime. Okay, so that's kind of what the reality is for us. But that said, I still say, having people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg putting their word and their money behind brain is a very good thing for a human. And we definitely, I think, and doing my part using this and trying to get our next generation children trained instead of educated with the same method that we've been teaching students for thousands of years, doing it a different way, and hopefully we can stay ahead of the machines. They are doing their part, and I hope that after today's talk you also think along this way. How do we, as a race, not only can embrace the advance in AI, in robotic, but also can elevate ourselves so we are still a master of the universe. Okay, so what can engineer do today? This is where it's paying the bill and going to go into telling you what NeuroSky do. So NeuroSky is a brainwave sensor and biosensor company. More than just a brainwave, we also do other kind of biosignals. We start with chips, and we also have modules. Earlier I talked about, behind the app, we have attention, we have impression, all those are different sort of algorithms. So we not only give you your brainwave, your EKG, things like that, we actually interpret it for you so you can create application. We work with our customer to build consumer devices. So earlier question about Emotive. Emotive is at this level. They are our potential customer too. They can buy our sensor, they can use our algorithm, and there are other companies that's doing that. And on top of that, there's also app, there's cloud data, there's something which, so we are used to talk about big data, but there's kind of one specific subset of it is big bio data, collecting a lot of biosensor data and processing it. There's also, we talk about IoT, right? There's actually, IoT is kind of making things, something that's on the internet, trackable. A lot of our customers actually in the business of IOH or IOP is actually making human or people something that's on the internet that's tracked by sensor and making sense of what they do, right? Okay, so that's kind of the big picture of what NeuroSky is about, and kind of quickly introduce, since we are talking about what you can do. So I mentioned earlier, we provide sensor, we provide even, this is more the development headset that you can get. And there's SDK you can download from the SDK, you can get things like attention, relaxation, how relaxed you are. They are typically coming out every second, it will give you a number between 0 to 100. Impression, I talked about earlier, how impressed you are. Familiarity is how much you have mastered a task. So this is actually also critical, for productivity, for learning, for tracking worker effectiveness. Mental effort, how difficult a task you are facing. Is it too difficult? Should you, change a different way to teach your student if it's too difficult? And emotion, right? So emotion-wise, we actually, this is two algorithms. One is on the x-axis, which measures basically your emotion, is it positive or negative? And on the y-axis, it measures how intense your emotion is. Is it high intention, high intensity or low intensity? And they get, basically all your emotion get mapped into this 2D space. All right, so all those things are available as SDK that you can use. So let me next, I just show you a bunch of video of different application that our developer or our customer has built using the technology, and hopefully it will inspire you to think about what you can do today already. So, besides, all the fancy moonshot project that Facebook and Neuralink is trying to do, even with so-called low-tech, brain tech today, there's a lot you can do. Let's start with was kind of early days, so they basically just use your mind to drive how fast the cars, the toy cars run.
Tech reporter Gabe Slate here. I'm in San Jose at the Tech Museum, where they are launching a brand new, really high-tech exhibit called Bodymetrix.
We're using really advanced algorithms, machine learning, and really it's the most technologically sophisticated exhibit a science museum has probably ever done.
It's a first of its kind. Visitors to the museum put on these high-tech wearables and get instant information about their physical and mental health. There's a sensor that goes on the shoulder blade, the headgear is placed on the left side of the head, and an iPod Touch running a special app is worn around the neck. You can then wear this gear around the museum during your visit, or just do the special activities they have set up in the Bodymetrix area. Either way, you will gain fascinating insight into yourself when you are done, when you place your iPod Touch on the giant interactive data pool table. Instantly, your body metrics are displayed from the time you would put on the wearables. You can learn about your physical and mental state during your visit while you were doing different things, see when you're at most peace and when you are stressed out, get all your health stats, learn about your balance, posture, physical condition. It measures how you were affected when people were crowding you. You can also compare your health stats to a friend or family member you were at the museum with.
So this is, not mass market. This one is from China. Is in.
来，请各位，我们尤其是前面的20位观众，带上我们的测试仪。好高级啊！我们来看一下，当这一段宣传片播放的时候，我们所有的观众朋友他们的兴奋点在哪里？请开始。我们要看到2个数据，一个是专注度和放松度。其实我们先从杨越开始，这个很冷静的男人会是怎么样的一种状态？波动很大啊！哎。 杨越怎么也是心潮爆爆的戏，人特别喜欢。在拥抱的那一刻，跟冷了一起，他就高兴了。
So yeah, this is very similar to what I did earlier, except they are just using attention and relaxation. They are not using impression here.
Seems like the response.
来，请各位，我们尤其是
Sorry.
Seems like the response time is very quick, very sensitive.
It's basically it's every 1 second it will report a new value. Okay, so next.
What if there was something that could actually measure your well-being while you fly? To put the experience of flying with us to the test, we invented the happiness blanket and conducted a unique live experiment at 30,000 feet. Using portable neurosensor technology, we developed a wearable device that measures the electrical fluctuations in the neurons of the brain, identifying when the wearer is experiencing a feeling of well-being. This information is relayed via Bluetooth to fiber optics woven into the blanket, which visually indicate what the wearer is feeling. When a person is stressed or anxious, the blanket turns red. When calm and relaxed, it turns blue. We then conducted our experiment on actual flights between London and New York. And here is what we discovered. Initially, there are fluctuations as the passengers settle in. But there is a noticeable lift in a passenger's mood whilst enjoying food and drink. You can also see the variations in responses to different types of films and entertainment, from comedy to thrillers. But most importantly, we discovered the unwavering sense of well-being created by being able to sink into deep, undisturbed sleep. So we know that all the enhancements we've made, from the seat to the cuisine, entertainment and lighting, have a positive effect on your mind and body, which means you can really see the difference when people fly with British Airways.
Next one.
What we've developed here is a very experimental proof of concept that hopefully gives an idea as to how audiences of the future might be able to control devices such as TVs just using their brainwaves. So seeing colleagues use it, firsthand has been an interesting experience.
It was really interesting. I didn't think it was going to be possible to be able to do it so quickly.
Just a bit weird, yeah. It's sort of you very rarely get to see your brainwaves sort of visually.
We're always on the lookout for new technologies, innovations and emerging trends in the marketplace. We look at how we can bring third-party innovation into the BBC and experiment to see what might be possible for audiences in the future. For this experiment, we work with this place to create an internal prototype that allows you to select what you watch on TV just by using your brainwaves.
And so now he's entering into the video and it's starting to play. So as you can imagine, this opens up a huge amount of opportunity for a quadriplegic person. This would be an incredibly useful tool to give them a lot more ability to actually interact with an increasingly digital world.
With my sort of level of mobility, I can still use a laptop, but I think there are people with severe disabilities that don't have that movement, and so this mind control technology can really help them in a way that they can't access it at the moment. It's an amazing concept, and with the pace of technology, I think that in the next 10 years or 20 years, this technology could be fantastic. I dream of the day of being able to just think that I want to start a TV program, and I'm just using the power of my mind to do that without having to use my fingertips.
We're the main makers behind Mindrider, the helmet that maps your best route, and the app that tracks your mind's performance as you ride. We're also all bike riders, and as ambassadors, we've been mapping New York City and seeing our mental experience tracked in all 5 boroughs and beyond.
We've come to realize that people really want to know what the Mindrider data is about. Avid cyclists want to collect data from the area. Novice cyclists want to be able to have access to that data set, while everybody wants to be able to see that data set overlaid with additional data that we have, like traffic, census data, accidents, and so forth.
This one actually requires a little bit of explanation. At the Belgian University, and they actually make this app to help little kids overcome anxiety, like when they're afraid of dark or things like that. This one is from a ADHD training. So basically, learning disability. It's again basically, the more you can focus, you can keep the airplane on track and get to all those target. If you lost your focus, then the plane will start doing weird things. Okay, my last video here, and this one is actually in Korean, and I don't understand Korean at all, but I don't think it requires you to understand it. So here we go.
이건 초대박. 왜요? 뭔데요? 이거 장난 아니에요. 이거는 사람 감정에 따라서 귀가 움직여요. 아, 나 이거 본 적이 있는 거 같아. 고양이의 마음이 돼버리는 거야? 한번 해봐. 내가 준비해왔어. 너가 좋아하는 거를. 그러니까 이거 이렇게 둘이 이렇게 움직이면 완전 흥분해. 아, 귀여워. 냄새 좋아. 두 개? 두 개가 이렇게 움직이면 좋아. 한번 먹어봐. 움직여서 그게 안 멈춰. 아이고 그렇게 좋아요. 나 힘들어.
What I showed earlier was more professionally done, but just want to share with you, there are actually a lot of junior high and high school students that has already used our tech and won various kinds of award with it, including shaking hand with President Obama. As I mentioned earlier, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So I hope today I distributed some of what's already available to you, and hopefully you join us in creating this new future where we can harness our brain power directly. Thank you.